In today's world, people feel lost in a sea of ideas. Which ones should we accept? Stay tuned because you're listening to Veracity Hill, striving for truth on faith, politics, and society. Here is your host, Kurt Jarris.
Well, a good day to you, and thanks for joining us here on another episode of Veracity Hill, where we are striving for truth on faith, politics, and society. The cold has been ushered in here to Chicagoland. Before I left on my Thanksgiving vacation to see family in Virginia, the weather was great. We had a nice long autumn season, but for those of you listening here in Chicagoland, you know winter is here, and it's only getting worse. We're going to head into single digits.
Or maybe it's getting better.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, maybe it's getting better. Yeah. My father would say it's getting better. Yeah. Single digit temperatures. We've got a snowstorm coming, 8 to 12 inches. So it's these times of year that I question why I'm living here exactly. But okay, so we've got a great show for you today. In a few moments, we're going to be bringing on Frank McKinney. But before we get to that, we've got a few announcements. Last week we announced on the show that Defenders Media has been given a $12,000 matching grant opportunity to finish out the year here. So if you've ever considered donating to our ministry, either to Veracity Hill specifically or more broadly to the work that Defenders does, now is the time to do it because your donation will be doubled up to $12,000. So it's a generous offer by a foundation, and we're very blessed with this opportunity, so please help us meet our year-end goal for that. Also, last week we had a great time talking to Perry Marshall, the author of Evolution 2.0. And for those that are viewing here on Facebook Live, we've got the book here, Evolution 2.0. We are going to give this away. Yeah. Give this book here away if you really enjoyed that episode and you want to read his book. Go ahead and like our Facebook page, and we're going to announce how you can win the book. So please pay attention to that. And then a couple weeks ago, when I was out of town, Chris did an excellent job filling in for me, talking about mere Christianity. So thank you, Chris. Sure. And if you haven't had the chance to listen to that episode, please do go ahead and check that out. Now, if you'd like to have your voice heard on the show, there's a few ways you can do that. The best way is to give us a call. The number is 505-2STRIVE. That's 505-278-7483. And did you know you can text us? Just text the word Veracity. That's VERACITY to the number 555-888. Once you do that, you can send me messages about the show. If you might have questions or you've got a topic or guest requests, I'll go ahead and take those submissions as well through our texting program. So that's a great way for us to get in touch with each other, and I'd love to get your feedback on how the show's going. All right, so today's topic, we're talking about philanthropic capitalism. A lot of people think, and maybe have even been influenced by that movie Wall Street, where the main character says greed is good, right? Capitalism is just greedy, and it's really just a corrupt system intrinsically. But is it really? Back in November, we did a number of political themed shows, episodes for you. And so we're going to do another politically based topic now, an economic one, really. And we're talking about, can there be things such as moral capitalism or capitalism for the sake of others, for the good of others? And so to help explore this topic, we've invited a special guest, Frank McKinney. He is a real estate mogul, if you will, but he's got a rags to riches story, and he certainly lives in warmer climates than here. So Frank, thanks for coming on the show today.
Kurt, I listened to you explain the weather up there in Chicago, and I'm talking to you, if your listeners can picture this, from an oceanfront treehouse office. I work actually in a treehouse. It's an office right on the ocean in Delray Beach. It's about 80 degrees, a little rainy, no snowstorms or anything. So when you question why you live in Chicago, we would love to host you in the treehouse someday.
Oh, a little rainy. Oh, shucks.
Yeah, that's all we got is a little rain. But actually, I'm from Indiana. I'm a corn-fed country boy that was raised in a little town outside of Indianapolis, so I'm very familiar with the weather you're experiencing.
Nice. Chris here, one of our tech guys and panelists, he's also from Indiana.
Yes.
So, so tell us, Frank, before we jump into what you do, tell us a little bit about your backstory. So you're born and raised in Indiana, but from what I've read online, you moved to Florida as a teenager with $50 in your pocket.
Yep, corn-fed country boy. I might have left the Midwest, but the Midwest never left me. I did hop on a plane when I was 18 years old. I had gone to four different high schools in 4 years, and it wasn't because my father was in the military. I was asked to leave one school after the next. After then, I finally went to school that was run by Jesuits, went to school that was run by Benedictine monks. They all tried. I guess they succeeded. It just took a little while and a few schools in between. But I landed in Florida with that $50 bill many years ago in search of what I refer to in my first book as my professional highest calling. What was I put on this earth to do? I don't believe in the welfare mentality. I might believe in the welfare system, but not the mentality, not the entitlement mentality. So when I landed, I got a job digging sand traps on a golf course as a maintenance worker for $180 a week. And I was watching that show on TV. You're a little young, you may not remember this, but Lifestyles and the Rich and Famous. It was a great show, narrated by Robin Leach. For younger people, it would be MTV Cribs or something like that. You got to kind of be a voyeur and look inside the lifestyles of the people who are successful. And I actually watched it in person, in real life as a maintenance worker, watching these rich people play golf all day as I was working on their golf course. I was moved over from the golf course to the tennis courts to maintain those. I became a tennis pro, pretty good teaching tennis pro. Same thing though, I was around affluence. And I decided that, I could only make so much money as a tennis instructor. Although it was great money at age 21, I was making about $100,000. I decided to get into real estate because a lot of the people that I taught tennis to taught me that this is how they made their fortune. I actually earned my PhD in entrepreneurship and my master's in real estate on that tennis court an hour at a time. When these people I was teaching how to hit a better forehand, they taught me about how to invest in real estate. So fast forward now, many years later, we build on speculation, meaning we build without a buyer in mind, beautiful oceanfront mansions, very large, right on the direct ocean in Palm Beach County. I like the field of dreams, Kurt. I build them, and I hope that they come and buy them. And
now, before we get more into the homes that you build, more about your backstory. So, the tennis, teaching tennis and making 6 digits. That's something else. But you must have spent a lot of time on the court. You said your PhD in entrepreneurship on that court. Boy, that's a lot easier than the project I'm working on right now. I'm writing my dissertation, so. But
really, because I didn't have the benefit of pursuing a formal education, I decided to learn from those who I admired and looked up to. And I had this little conspiracy really where, here I'm teaching somebody who drives up for their tennis lesson in a Mercedes and they just closed the door behind them on a, $3 million house. And they got a beautiful wife and kids and yacht and, everything. As a young person, mind you, I'm in my early 20s. I'm looking up to that. Like that inspires me. Mm-hmm. And I would ask them, I'd say, look, I'm young, I'm impressionable, I'm disciplined too. I'm going to run these people around, my tennis students, really hard for 45 minutes, Kurt, so they couldn't finish the hour-long tennis lesson. But I'd sit them down for those 15 minutes. I'd pick their brain, and I did it student after student after. I did it for a couple years, and I got to the bottom of the common thread of their success, which was investing in real estate. So I simply just followed their lead. Yeah, well,
that's a good testament that not everyone has to go to school in order to become successful. So there are other ways to do it. And as you did it, you learned by just talking to people over and over and learning from them, and the hours built up, and all of a sudden you had enough and you gave it your go, and boy, did you give it your go. So some of these homes, that you've made are just, you're appealing to something like 50,000 people in the world, with the sorts of luxury that you've built into these homes. Is that right?
Yeah, it really, like, you just digressing a second, there are different kind of classrooms in life, right? There's the formal classroom, and there was my classroom on the tennis court. So I did go to school. It just wasn't it wasn't the typical kind of school, and I'm very, I would have liked to have gone to school. I just didn't have the GPA to get into that school, or any school for that matter. I had a horrible GPA. But when it came to the houses that we build now, I mean, I didn't start here. I started by buying, fixing up, and selling $50,000 crack houses. I mean, houses in really bad parts of town that were in drug-infested neighborhoods. But we kind of turned the neighborhoods around one house at a time. For the first 5 years of my career, I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000. And I did a bunch of them. I got really good at the craft of real estate. I became the real estate artist at that point. And then I simply took what I knew after accomplishing, doing quite a few deals under 100,000, and moved to the oceanfront because I happened not personally moved to the oceanfront, but moved my business to the oceanfront, and started doing houses on the ocean. And so, yes, they're three-dimensional works of art. That's where, listen, I'm a real estate artist, yet I can't sing a tune, I can't carry a tune on an instrument, and I can't draw a stick figure. My artistry comes in the form of three-dimensional art that the ultra-wealthy pay, a good amount of money for. I build them I don't build for a specific customer. I build them to what I think the specific customer, almost a profile of an individual. We furnish them. My wife and I furnish them down to the gold-plated toothbrush in the bathroom, linens on the beds, towels in the closet, and then put the for sale sign in the yard and again hope that they come and buy them. And we've done 41 of those projects since 1992.
Well, but that's not the only thing you do. You also put on extravagant events in order to gain attention about your project, right? Tell us a little bit about some of those events that you've put on.
Yeah, we got one coming up on Friday the 13th of January where I'm introducing this whole new concept in luxury real estate called the micro mansion. And I know we don't got a whole lot of time, but basically I have built bedrooms bigger than the house I'm unveiling to the public.
It's a tiny house. 13th. A tiny house. Is it on a trailer?
No, it's not that tiny, but it would be kind of the equivalent of a tiny house for the ultra wealthy.
Okay.
So, it's around 4,000 square feet, but it's taking all the finishes that I was putting in the 10 to 15,000 square foot houses. Beautiful over the top finishes. $3,000-4,000 square foot finishes, and just sizing the house down because this isn't something that I'm doing just because I want to. This is a trend I'm seeing where the wealthy have more houses in more places and they're staying in them less days. So they have asked me, hey, Frank, do you got anything smaller? We'd love your 12,000 square foot house that you sold us 5 years ago, but we're not using it very much. And when we are there, we're not using all of it.
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of a tangent. So what we do is we unveil them in a very theatrical way to again, the show really isn't me. The show isn't, the theatrics. The show is the house. And the idea is to get the ultra-wealthy buyers, to get the media, and to get the million-dollar real estate brokers to come to the house to see the little bit of an entertaining show that might belong on Broadway or Vegas. But when the show's over, the true show starts when the buyers and the VIPs, the media, walk in the front door of my houses.
So for our listeners who are perhaps unfamiliar with your work, describe some of these events. So you've driven a motorcycle over a prototype of a home. You've done a magic trick going from one house into a coffin in the ground somehow. What else have you done?
Very good. You've done your research. Yeah. One show or one unveiling, I choreographed this battle between a good pirate, which of course was me, and a bad pirate, which was trying to stop me from unveiling this house. And we had about 450 guests watching this, maybe a 12-minute choreographed battle between the two of us, where there was gunfire and zip lines and all sorts of things. And then you mentioned the one where I'm the beacon of realistic optimism, and I can't stand negativity. And when the real estate market was crashing in 2010-ish, things were falling apart. There was so much negativity that whole scene where I was on the roof of one of the houses we were unveiling. And then I studied under an illusionist, and I disappeared from the roof, and I ended up reappearing 6 feet underground in a coffin where the ground actually shook as this coffin came up and breached the surface of the earth, surface of the ground, and I came out of the coffin. The only thing that was going to die that night during my kind of diatribe of a monologue was the negativity. And the real estate market is here to stay, and let's put this negativity to death and to bed forever.
Yeah.
And then the one we'll do this January the 13th will be, yes, I did jump a motorcycle over a house to simulate kind of going from that $50,000 fixer-upper and landing it on this $50 million mansion that we were doing.
Wow.
And then on Friday the 13th of January, we're doing this mermaids and martinis theme. They'll have mermaids diving in the pools for pearls. It'll be fun.
Interesting. Okay, so I got to ask about the magic trick. Did because you build these homes, did you just build a tunnel from the house to the coffin? I was thinking about how you did that.
The answer, I will not tell you how I did it, but the answer is no.
Okay. Yes, a magician
I did not build a tunnel.
A magician never reveals his secrets, so I guess that as a Renaissance man, now you are also a magician.
Listen, Kurt, I will never make a living as a magician. I tell you, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I don't know how those guys do it. I'm happy to be just a simple real estate guy.
Yeah. But so when you sell these big extravagant homes, you don't go and live the high life yourself. You live in a house that's like 80-something years old, right? It's a bit smaller. And you also then, I imagine, put a lot of the money that you do make into the Caring House project. So tell us a little bit about that project, what you do there in Haiti.
So for your listeners who happen to be religious, not spiritual, because everybody, how many people in the room are spiritual? Everybody raise their hand. How many people are religious? Nobody's, everybody's ashamed to represent that they're religious.
Right.
So if you're religious and you pray, there's a great biblical passage that happens to be a wonderful life mantra. And that is taken from Luke 12:48. And I'm going to paraphrase, to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. We know this passage. It's a beautiful passage. Now, if you're an atheist or an agnostic, there is a great life mantra that happens to be a biblical passage. It's also Luke 12:48. To whom much is entrusted, much is expected. So don't let it scare you. It is. Listen, I'm speaking from a lot of people, and a lot of people are turned off organized religion, and I have a certain way that I go about evangelizing people, and in today's times, that's a whole other discussion we could have.
Sure,
but
yeah.
It's critical that people now understand that, and I do believe this is the whole thesis behind my book, The Tap, to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. So yes, when we build a big house, or not just build it, when we sell one of the houses, and we've done this from the very beginning too, Kurt, this isn't a new thing, that we take some of the proceeds along with a lot of donors. I mean, we have a tremendous number of donors now that want to get involved in our Caring House project. And I am a simpleton. I had a 1.8 grade point average coming out of high school. So you got to imagine, I'm a very linear thinker. I build the big ones so we can build a bunch of the little ones in the poorest country in the world, that being Haiti. So, here we have social service programs in the United States to catch the indigent or the homeless should they want to be caught. A lot of people on the streets want to live on the streets in the United States. But in Haiti, being the poorest country in the world where the infant mortality rate is 22%, meaning there's a 22% chance if you have a little brother or sister, they're not going to see their 5th birthday. The average life expectancy in Haiti is 47 years, and they live on less than $1 a day. We go over there and build self-sufficient villages with the proceeds from the sale of my houses and the proceeds from donors who donate to our Caring House Project Foundation. And Kurt, before we go on, I want to make sure your listeners understand that we have built 24 self-sufficient villages in Haiti, and this is where we're going to get into philanthropic capitalism. 24 self-sufficient villages in Haiti since 2003. That's 10,616 people, children primarily, and their parents, who have been housed in our self-sufficient villages.
And these are villages. There's housing, schooling, community and healthcare centers, right? You've got set them up for food, clean water, right? The whole kit and caboodle, as the saying goes.
It's all about self-sufficiency because poverty, let me back up, charity causes poverty. Please understand that charity exacerbates poverty, especially in third world countries. They must be taught how to be self-sufficient. So now, I'm not saying if you're going down the street and you see a guy begging for $1 that you should give it to him. Of course, you should feel inclined to do that. But when it comes to a little bit broader scale, going into a country that has no welfare program or social service program to help the poor and the indigent, it's teaching them, not necessarily just teaching them because they know how to do it. It's giving them the tools to become self-sufficient. So our villages, yes, they include houses, some beautiful, small. Now these are true tiny houses. These are about 400 to 500 square feet, concrete houses, about 40 to 50 per village. We build a community center, which is a place of worship. It's a place where they go to school, a place where there's a clinic. There's also a little micro lending office in the community centers.
Nice.
We have renewable food, clean drinking water, and absolutely unequivocally some form of free enterprise and capitalism that allows them to maintain after we leave, because it's made very clear, when we're done, we're not coming back to help you. So you got to make it on your own. Don't count on us anymore.
So I'm curious, if you've got the figures in your head, what's the breakdown for the cost for those sorts of things? How much does it cost to make a house or even just a whole village? What does it take? What sort of campaign does that take?
That's a great question. Let's start from the top down. The simple answer is it's around, for a 40 to 50 house village with the community center and all those elements I just referenced, it's around $300,000.
Yeah.
And I just want to repeat that. That's 40 to 50 houses, plus the school, plus the community center, plus the water, plus the food, $300,000. Like where I live in South Florida, in Palm Beach County, you can't buy one house for $300,000.
Yeah.
So here we're building 40 to 50 plus, it's typically around, if it's a 50 house village, that's 8 times 50 is 400. It's 400 people that are living in that village.
Mm-hmm.
So the money, I'm a businessman, right? And the first thing that we understand with our Caring House Project Foundation, and if for those of you who are listening who have a little bit of business sense, you've heard of an ROI, right? Return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the charity business, we coined the phrase ROD, return on donation.
Mm.
How far can I stretch my donor's dollar? And with what I just shared with you, a house, Kurt, a house, for those who are listening, and when we're done, I hope you go to my website and you'll help us build these villages, chpf.org. A house I can build for $4,000, a brand new house. That's like $10 a square foot.
Mm.
My house is here in South Florida. I'm spending about $1,000 a square foot to build for the, for the wealthy. And so even if you, okay, that's too much for me, Frank. I can't build a house for $4,000. Give up a Starbucks. Give up your latte. One day I can buy a chicken for $4.75.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's awesome. Well, I know you're doing good work there. And remind us, so how long have you been doing that?
Since 2003, we went to Haiti. Well, actually, my Caring House has been around since 1998, where we were buying, kind of crack houses that I used to do in my early days and fixing them up and renting them to elderly homeless people for $1 a month.
Wow.
And we did that for about 4 years. And I realized, we can stretch our dollar a lot further if we take it to a country that doesn't have, programs to help the homeless. And that's why we went over to Haiti in 2003.
Right. Okay, so I've got some questions for you here. So, and also, if you're listening right now and you got a question for Frank, you can give us a call. The number is 505-2-STRIVE. So Frank, why do you think that people have a misconception about capitalism, thinking that capitalists are like, say, Ebenezer Scrooge from The Christmas Carol or something like that? Why do you think that misconception exists?
I think a lot of the negative imagery that we have in society today can be directly linked to the media. So if you think I heard you talk about the movie Wall Street. You just talked about Scrooge. That's a form of media that kind of has us seeing capitalists, people who believe in free enterprise. By the way, that's what our country was founded on. Yeah. You see that as an evil, and some people will say, well, okay, it's a necessary evil. I think it's neither. You have evil people that tend to take advantage of capitalism, which when you do that, it's not capitalism anymore, it's greed. Yeah. And then its purity goes away. Most of the folks that I know, that I've met, my mentors, people I look up to, books I read, have pursued free enterprise and capitalism for the betterment of not only themselves, their families, their communities, their country. And so when people see, because the stock and trade, the idea is to make a profit, right? It is the idea in capitalism is to sell something, provide a service for a profit. Yeah. And it's what you do with that profit that matters. So yes, I profit, but it's what I do as a responsible steward for God's blessings. Yeah. That it makes capitalism now. By the way, I'm fairly biblically scholared. The second only to love in the Bible is the reference of money. Yeah. Right. So it talks negatively about what money can do as we worship it, and also positively as we get out there and we share our blessings with those less fortunate. Yeah, right. And as you said, the system is not run on greed, and you know this because there's greed everywhere in socialism and communism and other systems as well. And so the one of the last things we want is some of those greedy people running the regulations, because then nobody likes the corporatism, the government corruption. And so that's why in a free market society, when there are greedy people, it actually just benefits other people, because the only way you can get rich if you're greedy
right, is to provide a service or a good to someone else. And so then, in that sense, I think capitalism is the best economic theory principle to incorporate into a society in order to harness that greed. So very good.
Yes, greed. That's interesting. I mean, it's the first time I've heard that. So greed in its purest sense is really has an absolute negative connotation. But I can be greedy for God. I can be greedy. I can be on fire for Christ. I can be, I can have all the greed. I want to make as much money as I can on these sales of my houses, so I can build more in Haiti.
Right.
Is that a bastardized sense of greed? I don't think it is.
Sure, yeah. And as long as that rightly ordered principle is there, that what you're going to do with the money, because you want to help those in need. Yeah, that's good. And so I wouldn't have a problem with understanding it that way.
It's true, but remember, around every corner lies Satan.
Yeah,
lies around every corner. So when you're playing with a toy that Satan plays with a lot, which is greed, you have to be very careful that he doesn't get a hold of that, right? And put his claws into you and have you use it because it's very easy to be tempted to use it in an incorrect way. I didn't really grasp the whole concept of sharing my blessings with those less fortunate until an epiphanous tap moment that I had in my mid-30s. Mm-hmm. So yes, there was a point. It was about me putting more cars in my garage and clothes in my closet, food in my pantry, right? Mm-hmm. Pure greed. But I was depressed, and I was going, here, I climbed the top of the real estate ladder. Is this all there is? I mean, I feel this crappy about myself. Yeah. What's going on? And I was able to find out why, and I turned it around. Yeah,
well, that's a great testament, because there are numerous, for example, sports legends that talk about having reached the pinnacle of their field and still feeling unfulfilled. And even if we become the best at our trade, that's not where we should find our meaning and value. You're not going to find it there. It's found somewhere else. And so that's great. Well, Frank, we've got to take a break here, but I'd love to continue talking with you after the short break from our sponsors.
You're listening to Veracity Hill, striving for truth on faith, politics, and society.
Evangelical Christians are talking about hell. What if we believe what we believe because we've always believed it? What if the gospel is really a matter of life and death? We want you to open your mind, open your Bible, and rethink hell. At rethinkinghell.com, evangelicals look at what the Bible says about hell, putting conventional and controversial views to the test.
People are talking a lot about healthcare these days. There are so many changes, so many questions. As Christians, where can we turn for answers? Well, at Samaritan Ministries, we believe the answer is in Jesus Christ, working in the lives of His people, demonstrating Christian community by sharing each other's medical needs, scripturally, faithfully. Here's just part of Lana's story in her own words.
I love getting the monthly share that I give to each month that has a name of a real person and their real medical concerns and a prayer request, for them. That I get to interact with people from all over the country, just like me, and get to pray for them and know that they're praying for me when I have a need. It's great. I love it.
Lana is just one of over 200,000 members who are sharing over $23 million in medical needs each month. If you'd like to experience what it's like to partner with other Christians for your healthcare needs, and you'd like to see what other members are saying, visit mysamaritanstory.org.
Well, thanks for sticking with us through that short break from our sponsors. I'm here with Frank McKinney, and today we are discussing philanthropic capitalism. And before we get back to that, it's time for a segment of the show that we like to call Rapid Questions. And so this is a segment where we ask short, lighthearted questions. And Frank, I'm wondering if you are keen to give this a go here for some goofy answers, and we want to see how fast you can get through this list. Are you ready?
I'm sure they'll be goofy. I'm ready.
Okay, and so this is a minute long, and so we're going to start the clock here. What's your clothing store of choice?
My closet.
Taco Bell or KFC?
Say that again?
Taco Bell or KFC?
I'll go KFC.
Excellent choice. What song is playing on your radio these days?
Probably a little Van Halen.
Favorite sport?
Tennis.
What is your spouse's favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What fruit would you say your head is shaped like?
A passion fruit.
What's your most hated sports franchise?
The Green Bay Packers.
Favorite movie?
Oh, goodness. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Do you drink Dr. Pepper?
Yes. All 23 flavors.
What's the one thing you'd be sure to keep with you if you were stranded on an island?
My running shoes.
Running shoes. Awesome. Well, thank you for playing Rapid Questions. Those are some excellent answers, Frank, and I must say your love of Dr. Pepper touches me deeply in my heart. Dr.
Pepper at KFC, you can't go wrong.
Oh, yeah, it makes the world taste better.
Yep.
Excellent. I think, Frank, you might be the first Dr. Pepper lover that we've interviewed, even though, of course, that question is tailored because of my own love for the drink. So I feel like we've got a great connection here.
I don't know how you can not love Dr. Pepper. By the way, the only answer I would take back would be my favorite sport is ultra running. It is not tennis anymore. So
Okay.
I kind of missed that one.
Okay, great. And
anyway.
that serves as a great opportunity, a good segue, which maybe that's what you had in mind. Ultra running. What is ultra running? And tell us about your Death Valley races.
So ultra running, ultra marathons, is any race longer than a traditional marathon. It could be a 50-kilometer race, which is about 31 miles. It could be a 100K race, which is 62 miles. It could be a 50-mile race. It could be a 100-mile race. My race that I've run in 10 times, and I've finished it 7 times and failed to finish 3 times, is, according to the National Geographic, it's the toughest foot race in the world. It's called the Badwater Ultra Marathon, 135-mile nonstop foot race from the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere at 282 feet below sea level in July, running through Death Valley, California, on a blacktop road on a Highway 190. That's the average temperature on the day in the air is 125-ish degrees. The road temperature, we saw over 200 degrees one year. We took one of those little Thanksgiving Day turkey things and stuck it in the road.
So the soles of your shoes are literally melting as you're running.
So that's you are correct. Nowadays, well, back when I first started running, some shoes had gel in them. Remember, they had the gel-filled, running shoes. Well, those had been known to explode on the pavement, and I run on the white line. So the white line is what you see on every highway in the United States.
Yeah.
That drops the temperature a whopping 12 degrees.
Wow. That's something else. Okay, so why do you do this? What's the purpose?
So everybody has a hobby. I just, I chose not to collect stamps. I felt that ultra running would be a wonderful hobby. I've always been an athlete. I was a tennis pro, and then I like running, but I was a fast twitch muscle runner. Ultra running is a microcosm for life. When you're running, for example, that race 135 miles, it takes me 40 hours. My fastest race was 40 hours to finish that race.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, no sleep, the sleep deprivation, the hallucinating, the vomiting, the wanting to quit, having to quit on 3 occasions out of the 10. But it really, I'm acutely aware of why many of the most impactful passages in the Bible were written in and about the desert, right? I mean, Exodus, many things talk about the desert, and this race is run through the desert, and the spiritual cleansing and awakening that I get out there is unlike anything else. Now, people say, well, Frank, why don't you just sit on your therapist's couch and maybe he or she can take care of you? And the therapy I get out there is second to none. And I love the people I meet out there. There's no aid stations, Kurt. There's no aid stations. So I have a crew that leapfrogs me every mile, my wife being the crew chief. And just the bonding that takes place with somebody who, forget mile 5, let alone mile 135 without that crew. I rely upon them. And they count every calorie, every gram of magnesium, potassium, sodium that goes into my body. It's a military operation just to get me to the finish line.
And how long does it take to run that race?
So my fastest race was 40 hours. My slowest was 48. There is a 48-hour cutoff. There are 100 people invited. It's invitation only. You just talk about your dissertation. You have to write an application that is like filling out a dissertation to get into Harvard or Yale. I mean, there's a 5-person application committee, so 100 people are chosen. This year there was 25 countries out of those 100 people at the start line.
Wow.
And so you have to have a resume, a pretty strong resume, a running resume, and the gun goes off, and there's no. I mean, you can stop, but the clock doesn't stop.
Right.
Until it stops after 48 hours. The winner runs that race in around 23, 24 hours.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Insane.
Wow. That the people that do that, do you get Olympic athletes that come and run this race?
No, because it's a very different sport.
Right.
The average age in the race is 46 years. You really are. You need to be disciplined. You need to have a really high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
The guys that run out of the gate like a jackrabbit are being scooped up off the pavement at mile 40 by an ambulance. You gotta go. The whole mantra is start slow and slow down.
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race.
That's right. No, for those of you who are interested, go to badwater.com. You don't even have to be into running it's just a fascinating undertaking. Insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible, yet people do it.
Hey, Frank, we've got a question from an online listener here. Philip, he asks, how do we explain this thought to people? The thought is about using our money. How do we explain this thought to people or even Christians that think we ourselves are justifying our choices to have nice or extravagant things from our income, even though we're using the money God's given us for good, say tithing and things like that, and donating to charity.
You first of all, Philip, you owe nobody an explanation. There's only one person you owe an explanation to, and that's you and my God. So I've been accused of the same thing that you're referencing. You're just buying your salvation, right? Your good deed is going to get you into heaven. Well, we know biblically that no good deed is going to get us into heaven. Since Christ died on the cross for us, you believe He's our Lord and Savior, you're going to go to heaven, no matter how much of a sinner, saved by the grace of God, you and I are.
Yep.
So, I believe, just getting back to being the simpleton, that God does reward responsible stewards. He does. I mean, and this is going to be the most simplest example. Why is Bill Gates the richest man in the world? Is it because he invented some kind of operating system, or is it because maybe, just maybe, he has, through his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, will save millions of lives with that blessing, with being that. Now, he's not a Christian, but he is a responsible steward for the blessings he's been given.
Yeah.
And I think that for those who want to cast that first stone by way of our choice of using our financial blessings to take care of others, let them throw away, right? We all live in glass houses. I think that's the person who needs to be prayed for and prayed for, by action. Let that person, Philip, see your actions, especially this time of year. It's a wonder. My book, The Tap, talks about going out and recognizing and acting on life's great tap moments, really looking for opportunities to share your blessings with those less fortunate.
And now, The Tap isn't the only book you've written. You've also written books in, is it 4 other genres?
4 genres total.
Okay.
Out of the 5 books.
Gotcha. And tell us, so what, I'm guessing you've written a book or 2 on real estate. You've also written a piece of fiction, right?
I wrote a book, real estate, self-help, young reader fantasy, so a book that competes with Potter and Twilight and Narnia, Hunger Games, and then the spiritual book, The Tap.
Yeah, right. Awesome. And now 3 of those books you released on the same day.
I did. There were 3 different genres. It was a real estate book, it was my spiritual book, and then it was my young reader fantasy novel.
Did you do that just to get like a Guinness World Record?
I don't think I got a Guinness record, but I did it because it hadn't been done before, but as I look back on it, I wouldn't do that again.
Okay.
Because, when we went out on our book tour, or people want to interview you, a typical morning talk show, you got maybe 3 minutes. I had 3 minutes to talk about 3 books. I really should have done 1 book at a time when I had 3 minutes to talk about 1 book.
Wow, that's funny. Okay, so another question for you here. For those that have trouble really grasping the concept of a Christian and a capitalist. Now, especially in my generation, so I'm in my late 20s. I mean, so though we don't talk about political candidates on the show all that much, I know Bernie Sanders got a lot of attention from people my age. And it seems that some of the ideas were appealing to them. And so as someone who's a free market capitalist myself, that's concerning to me. So what would you say to someone who might think that you can't be a Christian and a capitalist at the same time? Are those two philosophies mutually exclusive?
I just say go to the Bible. I mean, if you're truly a Christian, look at what King Solomon did with his riches. I mean, he's the richest man in the world. If you adjust for inflation, he was by far the richest man in the world. So I'm with you, Kurt. The Bernie Sanders movement, I mean, the following, I should say, where, capitalism really was frowned upon and it was moving a little bit more towards socialism. Find one, and now we're getting a little political here, but find one country, one nation that has benefited under socialism. There isn't one. And they don't last very long. And then they become dictatorial, where there's a fine line between, dictator and socialist. So in our country, yes, we have gotten off center. There's no doubt about it. And not that we need to go running back to the Reagan days of trickle down economics. I mean, that's a whole different show that we could do.
Right.
But it just take the simple answer. Throughout many references in the Bible, Christians have always been capitalists. It's what you do with the fruits of your labor. Are you going to store it up in your barns and vats and think you're going to live forever and you're going to be taken the next day? No, you're going to share it with those less fortunate.
Right.
That's where I think. And now the thing with a lot of the Bernie Sanders people, where I'm pretty sure a lot of atheists there. A lot of people who were non-believers. So it's really easy to follow almost a religion. So socialism is kind of a religion when you don't have the belief in the God that you and I believe in. That's where I think evangelizing today, and I know, I don't want to go off on an evangelistic tangent on your show, but I think it's okay if it's perceived that way. It's very, again, getting back to being that simpleton. If Christ walked the earth today with an iPhone and long blonde hair, actually my hair's red now, but whatever color it is, and he's not with a robe on and with sandals, because it's dogma that scares people's karma, right? Don't let my karma run over your dogma, whatever that saying is. It's get away from the dogma. Get into, if Christ were walking the earth today, how would he see a gay couple? How would he see abortion? How would he see somebody living under the bridge? How would he see making money? And I think that would have evolved from 2,000 years ago to today. And that's all I simply do is I try to picture, if I were Christ walking, with skin today, if he were walking beside me, I'm putting myself in his shoes, if he were walking beside me, how would I want to, how can I emulate him to the best of my ability?
Right.
Today, though, not dogmatically, but today.
Right, and we need to understand that Jesus did live in a context, and so sometimes maybe the way we treat people might be a bit different because our contexts are different. I mean, Jesus interacted only so often, say, with Romans or Gentiles, and much more with Jewish people with whom he had a lot of common beliefs. So that's one of the important things we need to consider, too, as Christians, because...
Oh, absolutely. Even after he died and came back from the dead, in one of his last interactions with his apostles, what was that revelation? Yeah. How is it that you can be socializing or meeting with the Gentiles? Right,
exactly.
And what Christ or what God has made clean, no man can make unclean. And that to me is just a simple way of, you don't have to go to the Bible for that. Like that, I think even your generation gets that.
Yeah, you can understand that principle. Yeah, right. Good. Hey, well, we've got
the bifurcation. Nope, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we've got a question here from Chris in studio. He's got a question for you.
Yes. Hello. So this is actually probably a very simple question to answer, but toward the top of the hour, you mentioned very briefly in a passing comment that you said you supported welfare, but not the welfare system. Am I correct? Am I phrasing that correctly?
No, reverse that.
Reverse that.
I believe in the welfare system. I don't believe in the welfare mentality.
Could you clarify the distinction between those two things, just for a point of clarification?
Sure. So if you go back to
Frank. Frank, could you repeat that?
Yep.
Sorry, we lost you for a second there.
Okay, you go back to this. Welfare has been around since the 1600s outside of our country. It was instituted back. The welfare system, the concept of welfare has been around since the 1600s. The welfare system, as we know it, has been around since the last Great Depression, 1929. So the system was implemented to help folks that had just suffered the worst depression in the history of our country. I believe in that. I believe in the system today, but it's not when that system becomes a mentality. When an entitlement mentality sets in like a toxic cancer, you can see the degradation of a society. Now, for somebody who goes on welfare, needs to be on welfare because they've lost their job or went through like a depression that we had 5 years ago, a mini Great Depression, I'm all for that. But it's when the entitlement programs are doled out like Starburst candies or bottles of Dr. Pepper, that's when it gets a little bit dangerous. And I can tell you that I've seen what it's done in our country with the welfare mentality, a little bit of an entitlement mentality, and how it doesn't work in a much poorer country like Haiti. So there is no system over there, right? There is no handout, and these people have to be self-sufficient, and that's why we ignite them with these self-sufficient villages. So Chris, I believe in the system. I just think it's very dangerous. I came down to Florida with nothing. I was very proud to have a job. There was no job there, even to this day. There isn't a job or a task I won't undertake on one of my job sites. I've cleaned out toilets in the last month that were full of what because we didn't have our water turned on, right? It was turned off because we're building a new house. There's nothing beneath me, and I think it's really kind of sad when you have people that are just so happy to be on some form of entitlement, and then they feel like they need to live on that for the rest of their life.
So go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, I was just wondering because you just mentioned Haiti again, and I recalled earlier you said there's an understanding that when we're done, and we're going to leave. And I think some listeners are going to feel that's a harsh sentiment. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how that's been working, and a little bit more about why that's the philosophy.
Okay. I think sometimes a harsh approach, instead of, everybody's a winner and everybody gets a trophy and everybody needs to be coddled, which kind of takes place in our country. That's not the case over there. We do take we do take a harsh approach because we have a model that is proven to work, right? And it's a simple model. Housing, place for worship, schooling, little microcredit, place to get your health in a clinic. And we're not a clinic like we would have over here, just like a little tiny room in a building. And then your renewable food and your clean drinking water. We set that up. And different kinds of free enterprise. We've done a fishing cooperative. We've done an animal husbandry. We've done nurseries, sewing cooperatives. We set that up. Now they're told that this is your. It's almost like a kid that gets allowance and says this is it. This is all you're going to get when we're done. The economic engine is in place for them to become self-sufficient. Now, if it didn't work, we wouldn't be on village number 24 because I have gone back and visited village number 1, and it's thriving.
Yeah,
that's why I love your phone number, the word strive. Strive. I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to move people from survival to thrival, and we've done it over there.
Yeah. Well, right. That's great. So we touched on a number of things there. And one of the things I wanted to point out too is that with this concept of welfare dependence, now on principle in the scriptures, at least in terms of the Christian community, it's not necessarily the standard that has to be held for the whole society, but at least the Christian, what I call communal standards. Paul writes, if a man doesn't work, he won't eat. So even if people were struggling and some people sold what they had and they had a pool of money, right? If you read the book of Acts, there were still standards. Paul taught the people that they still had to work with their hands. They still had to do things. They couldn't just sit idly by if they were able, right? Then, so even then in the first century, there was still sort of this dependence upon a pool of money. So we see those principles in the scripture.
Yeah.
So
you're right on. Thank you for saying that. And even in Proverbs, how many references to the sluggard?
Yeah, right.
To the sloth.
Yep.
To the lazy guy. And that's just human nature. So don't complain about it. If you're lazy and you don't want to work, well, there's nothing going to be there for you. Our country, there is the pool of money that you and I pay into, that people can live off of for a period of time. And listen, we've all had hardships, and Lord, now I want to be very clear that 85% of our donors' dollars go to Haiti, but 15% of our donors' dollars stay here in the United States. We do a tremendous amount of outreach to the homeless here in the United States.
Sure, yeah.
So, and I've personally met and talked with over 10,000 homeless people because I did a book tour that focused completely on homelessness. I didn't go to bookstores. I went to homeless shelters and talked about my book across the country.
Awesome.
I have talked to them, and I will tell you that 70 to 80% of them are educated, are lucid, are well-spoken, and just are down and out. Now, that might have caused drug abuse and alcohol abuse, but it's pretty rare, and most people think it's the reverse, that the drug abuse and the alcohol abuse caused the homelessness. It's not the case. And I've met some of the most educated people who they don't want a handout. I'll never forget when we did this book tour, at the end of my talk, I went to a homeless shelter. If you were the executive director of the homeless shelter, you got $10 for every person that came to listen to my talk when I walked out the door. No red tape. So people would be bringing in 500 homeless people. That's it's $5,000. Right at the end, we write our charity write you a check.
Yeah.
We do a little drawing, like a game show at the end to make it exciting. You draw a name out of a hat, and then you got your choice. If you're homeless, you got your choice. You could have cash, you have a gift certificate, you have one of my books. Of course, more often they chose the cash or the gift certificate, but a third of the time, 40% of the time, they wanted one of my books, and not the spiritual book necessarily. They wanted the business book. They wanted to learn how to make some money. I thought that was just, here I'm holding a $50 bill and you're living on the street and you choose a book. It was amazing.
So Michael here, who's watching online, he asks, what advice do you have for young people who are Christians and want to get into business these days?
That's pretty broad. That's a pretty broad question. Young people who are Christian and want to get into business. First of all, start really small, extremely small. I don't like big thinkers out of the box. You need to think really, really small when you're getting into business. And when I talk to a lot of high school kids and commencement speeches here and there. And the first thing I say, you find something that you're passionate about, and forget that there's even a financial equation associated with it. What is it that you love to do? And it's really interesting when you kind of mentor some of these people and you get the answer and you realize, okay, we can actually monetize that. How can you monetize something that you're passionate about? More often than not, you can find a way, either the front door or the back doorway, to monetize something that you're passionate about. So, without getting into specific industries to answer Michael's question, start small, find something you're passionate about, and monetize it.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so we're running short on time here a little bit. I've got one question for you. As I can see, some of your life experiences and perhaps from your reading of various books have been influential for you along your journey. But has there been someone or someones that have really stuck out along your path that really were role models for you? Not necessarily mentors, but maybe you looked up to and wanted to model yourself after.
This is a really important point. I'm glad we're going to finish on this one. And it's something that I've kind of stumbled on in the last 5 years of my life, and I'm a lot older than you guys. And I'll go as quickly as I can. You ever notice how motivation doesn't last? Man, I will tell you, motivation washes off and we would go down the drain with the soap tonight. If I only motivated you on this call, I failed, because you will forget it. You can't stay motivated to stay on a diet, to stay financially motivated, spiritually motivated. Motivation will wash off and go down the drain with the soap tonight. Inspiration, a little bit better, but it lasts about as long as a bad sunburn. It will eventually dissipate. It's aspiration. Aspiration, guys. Aspiration. Aspiration will alter your DNA, forever changing your life and the lives of those you love. So, this is a roundabout answer to your question. Who do you aspire to emulate? What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? These are it's a fun question to think about, more fun to answer. And so for me, I have aspired to be more like Rich DeVos. He's one of my mentors. He's a good Christian man. He co-founded Amway. He's one of the richest men in the world. But he taught me how to dovetail my spiritual highest calling with my professional highest calling, and I will be forever in his gratitude and his debt for that at 90 years old that he is now. The other thing, when you think about who you aspire to emulate, it doesn't necessarily have to be a real person. Like, I used Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So
Yeah.
Willy Wonka is somebody that I really have aspired to be like. And it might sound a little, childish, but if you read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, different from the book, different from the movie, read the book. It's the best marketing book you'll ever read. And I picked up things on, we've done golden ticket things, and why my unveilings are so theatrical. That's very much Willy Wonka-esque.
Right.
Robin Hood. I loved Robin Hood as a kid. I used to go in the woods and play Robin Hood. Now I get to be a modern-day Robin Hood. I don't steal from the rich. I sell to them, but I get to give to the poor. So, these are things that's kind of fun. Rich DeVos, I actually, when Trump was purely just a businessman, a real estate guy, I aspired to be more like him. Rich, Robin Hood, Willy Wonka. So these are people that I do look up to and that have shaped kind of who I am today.
Right. Well, that's great. Hey, one final point here, because I've seen it on your Facebook page. You, correct me if I'm wrong, you are being considered to be the ambassador to Haiti. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, I'm on the short list the short list is now 100 people long, I just learned, so it's not as short as I thought it was. But yes, I've gone through a couple interviews, and I'm taking my whole thesis, my whole
Sure.
pitch, if you will, is that philanthropic capitalistic approach. Now it's different. Up to this point in Haiti, I have been there to care for the Haitian people.
Right.
When you're ambassador to Haiti, you're there to look out for the American interests in Haiti.
Right.
Americans first.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last thing we want is to prop up another nation.
Yeah.
We don't want, look at what Trump talks about, borders and building walls and all this stuff. Well, he don't want to help the Haitians. I know I can help them help themselves, so we don't have to help them as much as we have in the past.
Right. Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, even when you get into trade policy, for instance, there are ways of letting there be a win-win in a capitalistic international society, if you will. So everyone benefits that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Haitians are very resourceful. They're very entrepreneurial. I have no doubt that, again, one of the guys in the studio there said it's a little harsh. Well, when you take away the punch bowl and you take away all the UN, all the support, and they're forced to be self-sufficient, guess what? They will be. They absolutely will be, as long as they've got a democratically elected, non-corrupt government, and that's been Haiti's problem. They haven't had a good leader in 50 years.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming on the show today, telling us about your story, your background, your journey along the way, and some of the things that have been influential for you, and your philosophy and your faith, and how that's informed your work ethic and your giving. It's just really been a pleasure. So thanks so much for taking time out of your day.
Really, I'll tell you what, Kurt, very refreshing show, because typically it's one or the other. I'm either talking all about my faith or we're talking about business, but here, this is great. So, hats off to you and all the guys in the studio for putting this thing together.
Yeah, well, of course. Thank you so much. Thanks. So if you want to...
guys, have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Frank. Bye-bye. So if you want to learn more about Frank, you can check out his website at frank-mckinney.com, where you can learn about all of his various fields, the things that he does. He's working on his books, his projects. You can learn all about that there. Again, the website is frank-mckinney.com. And if you forget that, we're going to just put up a link at our website so you can go and check out his website there too. Great. Well, that does it for our show today. I'm grateful for the continued support of our patrons. Those are folks that just chip in a couple bucks a month. And I'm also grateful for the partnerships we have with our sponsors. And those are folks that help us out, and they are Defenders Media, Consult Kevin, The Sky Floor, Rethinking Hell, the Illinois Family Institute, and Evolution 2.0. Thank you to the tech team today, Chris and Joel, and for their remarks in the show as well. And thanks to our guest, Frank McKinney. Thank you for listening in and for striving for truth on faith, politics, and society.
You've been listening to Veracity Hill, striving for truth on faith, politics, and society. This is a listener-supported program. For more resources, including past shows, visit veracityhill.com.